All right, are you guys pumped? Let's go. So the first look is from Adidas Spot, and we're gonna try to make it look like this, and these are the two shots that we're gonna be working with. So here is the interior that we're gonna try to get it in the ballpark, and then here is the other one, and that's going to be similar situation. The context is the same. So one thing that I'm noticing right now that we need to fix is these letterbox bars, and you know when the footage is bigger than UHD, it's going to add those. So we went through that multiple times, but I'm going to do it again. So you go under retime and sizing, you go under scaling, and you just change it to fill, and that takes care of that. And I could do the same thing right here, and now we are ready to go. Let's jump back in here, go to our first shot. I'm gonna pull up this image. One thing that I want to show you right before we get in is that there is another method that I prefer more over this. So more than this image wipe, there's another method that I prefer, and that is our split screen, this guy right here. So if I click on that, look what happens. It gives me a full image, which also means, so I'm gonna close this up and give us some real estate. What I love about that is, look right here, it's actually telling us the whole story on one half. So it splits our scopes in half, and then it tells us the whole story in parade and waveform. And that's all that I need to really dial it in really fast. So now that I'm looking at that, first node, let's reserve it for our noise reduction. So I'm gonna right click, I'm gonna say, give me another node, serial node, I'm gonna pull that down. That's my primaries. And in this entire module, I'm gonna try to avoid using LUTs. We're gonna build these looks from ground up through our log footage, okay? So I'm in my primaries, I'm gonna say, let's just get the contrast right. Once we have the contrast right, we're gonna start seeing a better picture already. Like, we're getting close to that contrast. I'm just watching that story right here on the right hand side, and then where I need to go, I'm gonna push my highlights, and okay, we're getting somewhere. And what I'm noticing is, let's just start adding some contrast, because there's a nice film contrast going on, but it's kind of crazy. It's kind of really pushed. And now I want to bring my dude up, give it more contrast. I want to bring my dude up, give it more contrast. I want to keep my highlights there actually. Just remember, okay, it's gritty New York. If our dude gets dirtied up a little bit, that's okay, because this is the feel, this is the vibe. It's real, it's raw, and that's what they're going for. So now I'm looking at it like that. I'm gonna pull up another image too, just to see if we're just kind of living in the same world. I like this image too, so let me see. So I'm not worried about like the exact colors right now. I'm just trying to make sure that we are getting in the ballpark in terms of the contrast and things like that. So I'm just gonna go back to this one, and I think it's already looking pretty good. I think the midtones are still kind of lifted here than there. So I'm going to try to bring my lift or my gamma down a little bit, not too much. And okay, that's not bad. I'm looking at it right here, and just look. We're pretty good. We're looking pretty good right now. Now what do I need? Let's just add some saturation, and that's going to start telling us more of the story. So I'm going to take it around 65-ish. I'm going to park it here for now. And now if we go before and after, it's coming together. It's not bad at all. So let's hold it right there. And maybe we can just dial back on the saturation a little bit. I'm going to take it to 60 and hold it right here. That's not bad at all. And this, all of that was done in our primaries. So now what? Now we can do a couple of things. We can start adding some separation in our colors and really get these colors in. So for that, I'm going to try to use this image. It gives us a little bit better understanding of like where I need to push my colors, and we're almost there. We're really, really almost there. I just see a little bit more, tiny bit more red in the undertones and the highlights than what we got going on. And then obviously I feel like we just need to give our teal more juice, because look how nice it is. And another thing that you got to notice that we're seeing that we're going to create is the glow. The glow on their lights is just so much more exaggerated than what we got going on. So just keep that in mind too, okay? So one thing at a time. So what I want to do is let's start creating some color separation right here. So I'm going to bring my lift down a little bit here, and then I'm going to raise my gain up to create that color. Like look at this color to that color, what we're creating here. And then even our cyan, I started bringing it down just a tiny bit in this world right here. So that's all I'm going to do in the primaries. That's where I'm going to park my primaries. So with one node, we went from here to here. And if I hide this or bring this down, we went from here to here. And let's play it through. Do not forget the intention. It's gritty. It's New York. It's Adidas. So we're not going to make our pretty boy look pretty in this one. We're just going to let the lights wrap him the way they would in real life. And then we're just going to give it the most character that we can. And there's so much more that we need to do, but one thing at a time. So for now, we are looking really good. Now what I want to do, I'm going to start creating some parallel mixer nodes and start controlling some of these highlights and shadows, okay? So I'm going to start with my highlights. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in my qualifiers. I'm going to move this over here. And this is the cleanest way to pull keys, FYI. Just know that. This is the cleanest way to pull keys. Use your luminance. If it doesn't work, then you're going to go in and use other things, but start with luminance. So you have to turn this off to see what's happening here. And all I want to do is just control my highlights, okay? And once I control my highlights, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be doing with it. So one thing that I'm thinking about is let's try this and see if it works. And if it doesn't, then we're going to try a different technique. So let's see. If I do before and after, and let's just go back and pull this open. So I do like what it's doing, because look at this color, and then these colors are coming in. It's really exaggerating more. So another thing that I can do is I can take my gain and give it more of that reddish, this sort of color to match this to his skin. And then for cyan, I'm just gonna take this and go more there to get these colors in. So now we're creating something really nice, and I think it is working. Even if I make it bigger and you look at it, let's park it on a frame that's pretty sharp, like right here. Just look at how much we're bringing in. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another parallel node. And in this one, we're going to do a similar thing, meaning I'm going to go to around 8.5-ish. That's the sweet spot when it comes to having really clean and soft keys. And then I'm going to go somewhere around here, and I'm going to go even tighter. And this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in my open effects. I'm going to search for glow. And I'm going to drop that in. And nothing happens when you first drop it in. Something is happening, but not much, but just look. So I'm going to go in my brightness, and I'm going to bring this up. A little bit is happening, not too much. I'm going to bring this down. I'm going to take my brightness even more. And you just play around with it until you start getting what you want. So now if I go here and look at this light and then look at my light, I mean, look. So we're getting it up to that hot spot, and then it's also adding a really nice, just a tiny bit highlight on his face too, which I like. But ultimately, what you need to know is we're getting pretty close to that. I mean, we can leave it here too, but I think it could be subjective at that point, but I'm liking what it's doing. Okay. Now I'm looking at my contrast, and the contrast is just in the ballpark. I mean, this is where we started, this is where we end up. The contrast is really, really in the ballpark. Look at the greens here on the right side. Look at our greens here. Now what I want to do is just pop up another image, one of these images, and just see how we hold up compared to other images in that. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create another parallel node. And usually it's a good practice, especially if you're working on, this spot is going to have more than just one shot. So creating this node tree and then pass it through is very, very important, because you just don't want to work on one shot for hours and then for it to not come through and replicate on other shots. So here what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and kind of grab the background and stuff like that. And then I want to do this. This time I do want to bring this, and I want to take these colors and kind of match it to what's happening here. And I think I have a good sense what's happening there. So I'm going to take my lift and I'm going to bring it down a little bit towards green. Okay, that's what's happening. Like these, like if you look at down there, there's a lot of like green undertones, and that's what we were missing, and now we got it. So that's what was going on there. And besides that, another thing that I'm noticing is that my contrast is still very gentle compared to their contrast. So that's going to be done like this. I'm going to show you. So I'm going to move this over to get some real estate. Now a couple of things that I want to do are these. I want to go and add, the way this is shot and how it looks, I don't think this necessarily needs a vignette, so I'm not even going to bother with that in this example. I'm going to be grading these shots, trying to stay as true as the look that we're going for. And in this one, I don't think it needs a vignette, and most of the time when you're working with stuff that's well lit, it won't need those things, so it's okay. What I want to do here is I want to give it some sharpness, and this is how I add sharpness. I go under here and I just bring that down to 87, and that's usually just adding enough to pop out the eyes and all that stuff, and you can see it. And then I'm going to create another node. I'm going to open my effects and I'm going to add grain, film grain, and that's one of the resolves effects, and it's the best. If you look at the Adidas commercial, there's a lot of grain in here, and grain is what makes it look gritty than this, glossy feel that we're getting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to not only add grain, it's already doing some stuff, but I'm going to take my grain strength and I'm going to crank it. Like somewhere around here. And then one thing that I'm noticing is that there is some noise that I want to take out. So I'm going to go in here and I'm just going to do gentle. I'm not going to go too crazy. So I'm going to do my usual. And I'm going to see if it's taken out. Yeah, it's doing that. So now if we go to our grain and turn it on and off, like look at it here, it's working. I think we can exaggerate it a little bit more, to be honest. I really think so. So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to go and just watch right here. It's just adding that film character, just look at right here. It adds a really nice film character. And now we're getting that. And let's see how close we are. I personally think that in the highlights there is more, a little bit more on the red side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in here and I'm just going to push that up. And I went from this to like pushing that red in. And I think, yeah, we're there. We got it. I mean, one thing that I'm gonna do actually is in my, so this is my global adjustment node, and in my global adjustment node I just want to take my offset and kind of move it around until I feel something is happening, and I want to see. So I'm gonna go and pull my color boost down a little bit, and what that does is that it just makes things a bit cleaner. And another thing I want to do is I'm gonna go back to my parallel and I want to create one more node, okay? And that's gonna be another parallel node, and I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do in this. Because what I'm noticing is that there's just way too much contrast in the Adidas spot just to make it really, really gritty. And I kind of want to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go do something like that, grab this, and I'm going to pull it. Pull it up like that. And now we kind of created the similar pop. Because if you just see what's happening in all of these, they're pushed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to not flip this. My bad. I'm going to render and flip that image right here. And now what I want to do is give it that green instead of what we got going on, this cyan. So that shouldn't be too hard. There's multiple ways to go about it. The way that I want to do it is in here. If we go right here and I turn this off and I go to my red actually and pull this down, it will start adding that. And then I'm going to go to my blue, and if I pull this down, now it's giving me that similar, like that color right there. I mean, I'm looking at this and where we started to where we are, and we're really not just matching one shot. We're going for very many different ones just to make sure that we're nailing it. And I think we are. So that is the first look. Now we're gonna move on to our second look, this guy right here. And let's bring in our image in here, this guy, and that's gonna be pretty aggressive to get it there. So let's start off, because what's gonna make it really aggressive is that this has this nice fog environment, you know, going on in here. So you got to remember that too. A lot of the times, if it's just not gonna match 1000%, because if something is shot with no fog, with no haze, it's gonna be a challenge to get that in. And you can get it as close as possible and really capture the colors and everything. And as long as you get there and the contrast is not that, because like look at that, okay? Like look at the image on the left. There was no haze, nothing to fill it in, because what happens with haze is that it keeps the image in the mids, most of the image. So then even when you expand it, it's really nice and very juicy all the way through. It sort of naturally creates a film contrast, whereas when you don't have the haze and you have these harsh lights at night, like in this shot, then let's open it up here in this shot, then it's really hard to create that. So let's just get going and see what happens. So I'm gonna grab my lift again, bring it down, just really get in there. So there. Then I'm going to take my gain and lift it up a little bit. Then I'm going to start giving it just color and see what happens. And I'm going to leave the color there for now. That's okay. And what I'm seeing is, okay, I mean, this is looking pretty good. Let's just give it some contrast to start adding that film juice. And then bring this up a little bit, not too much, because our contrast is supposed to be really crazy. So I'm going to keep my image somewhere around here and look at the reds here. Like, so we're in that ballpark. Even look at the greens where they're reaching up. We're close to that. So we're going to keep it somewhere around here. And now we're going to start creating our look. So what I'm seeing is that in his look, the reds are a little bit lower than the greens and the blues, and you can even see it here just a little bit. So that is achieved by pulling this down just a little bit. And then raising the reds here. So obviously in this environment, we have one more color than what they're using. So they're using red and teal, and we're using red, teal, and yellow. So we're not necessarily going to take that out now. We're just going to make sure that we get everything else in this world, in this ballpark, and then go from there. So another thing that I'm seeing is that there's still room for contrast, but this time I'm going to create contrast differently. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go in my qualifiers. I'm going to start with this, but I'm going to keep it pretty tight. So 4.7-ish or something like that. I'm going to come out of here, and I'm just going to grab literally the whatever leftover darkest areas I can grab. I'm going to pop this open, and now I'm going to use my color wheels here, and I'm just going to bring that down. So I'm going to park it somewhere around here and just look how much contrast we created without affecting, you know, the lower mids and everything else. We left that intact. So I feel like that did the trick. Another thing I'm going to do is create another parallel node, and in this one I'm going to go in here. I'm going to select red, and I'm just going to exaggerate it. So it's hue versus saturation, and I'm going to raise it. I'm going to raise it, and then somewhere around here, that's okay. And then what I want to do is, it's looking pretty crummy right now because just look at all this noise. So we know what to do to get rid of it. So I'm gonna grab all of this and I'm gonna put this up. That's my first node. I'm gonna go in and let's just clean it up nicely. And it is all gone. But just look how great of a job it does, because it does not take away any of the actual meat. It just cleans up the noise, and that's why it's acceptable to work with Canon, because Canon can really just leave the information in, the detail in, and just take out the noise. And now we have that. We can obviously later down the road when we add grain, like we can give it a lot of cool texture. But I feel like with something like that, I'm gonna go in here and I'm just gonna add some sharpening. I'm gonna go and drop grain, and I'm gonna exaggerate it like we did last time, and then I'm gonna activate that and see how everything looks, or how the grain is working. So the grain is adding a lot of character. Love it. And we started here, we ended up here, and let's just grab all the nodes that are doing the little extra bit to get us in this ballpark. And a lot of the times that's what grading is going to be all about. It's going to be like, and look, it's all going to stick. So now if I go from here, I can just show you, like, look at this, how nice it looks. And just look at the colors. Like, we got the teal action going on, we got the red popping through there because of what we did here, and just all these colors are just so nice. So if I just play it through, like, look, all the colors coming in like that. I mean, like, this is gorgeous. Now, one thing that I would do is I would go here, and basically what we're gonna do is we're gonna add glow, and then the final adjustment is gonna be our global. But I'm gonna add glow and see what it does, and you will notice what it does. Like, just look in the back and how it just takes the edge off, the sting off the super highlighted areas, and it just gives them a nice roll off. And that's why it's very, very, very important. And they were doing that in all of their exterior shots, and just adding that little bit goes a long way, and it just adds to that finesse, the last thing, if you will. And just look at it. So we started from here, and then we ended up here. With not much at all. So we got our teals on the dot. Just look at the teals. We got our reds where they were supposed to be. We cleaned up the image after adding red, how much noise it added. And then we went in and just sharpened the image just a tiny bit. We added grain to keep that grittiness that Adidas is all about, the streetwear and that urban feel. And then we can always leave one node at the end if it just needs anything else. But in this case, it doesn't need anything else. This looks good. Let's watch it one more time. And there you go. So we created two really cool looks. I'm just gonna play them back to back, and obviously they're not supposed to go together like that, but we'll just play them through. So for exteriors, we went pretty hot and heavy with the gritty aspect, and if we look at our frame next to it, we were able to get pretty close. We nailed a lot of the same tones, and interior was trying to stay true to the essence with these main colors, and then just adding an extra flair, because every location is going to be different, and you can only use the inspiration and then build on that and bring your own personality, your flair into a piece. So this was Adidas. Now we're going to move on to the next lesson.